Okay, we're going to do another video. This time we want to get our player to be able to shoot a bullet out of the top of the weapon, top of the player, and move up the screen. This is going to be basic Space Invaders type shooting. One bullet at a time. For those of you who have been watching other videos, just a quick note that this is going to be taking place just like we did in class. We have the ability to move. No, that's not the right one. This looks better. We have the ability to move left and right based on our A and D keys. And that's all we can do. We don't move up, down. We don't move in any other fancy way. So we want to start with that, and then we'll go from there. Thinking through our variables, some things that we might want to do. We have the speed of the player. If we think that the missile, that's what I'm going to call it throughout this, missile. If we think the missile needs a different speed, we might want to set it up. Now I've learned that missile is spelled different than what I used to think. So I'm going to spell it that way. So maybe we want our missile to be like twice the player's speed because we want it to look like a real laser kind of thing. What's our missile going to look like? Well, we're going to draw our missile as either a circle or a line in this demonstration. You could load in an image, and you could draw the image wherever you have a missile. That's not very hard to do if you've really studied how to load these images and use them. So that won't be that different. Our missile is going to have the ability to be shown on the screen, which means it needs a location. So we have a missile lock, which is just too much fun to say. We're going to start our missile location at 0, 0, and we'll play from there. Our missile, we also have to know, this is kind of funny, but we have to know if our missile is currently being used or if it's like in storage, and that really is going to help us get this thing to work. So what I like to do is I like to make a variable called missile on. And if it's true if the missile is on the screen, it's false if the missile is off the screen. In a game like Space Invaders, you're only allowed to shoot if the missile is not currently on the screen, so you can see how that might be helpful. Also, we need to know, has the player pressed the spacebar? When the player, or the firing key, whatever that is, when the player hits the trigger, we want to know. So we're going to use another Boolean value of true or false. False, he has not pressed the trigger. True, he has pressed the trigger. Again, not allowed to press the trigger until the missile is off the screen. So we can basically disable it when we need to by using this variable. Okay. We're going to start with our key up and key down because now we want to add the ability to shoot, so we need to add a new key. What do you want to use for your shooting ability? I'm going to use the space bar, which is called space. And what happens if he wants to shoot? Well, hey, his trigger is true. He just pulled the trigger. Player trigger is a global variable that may change if he hits the spacebar, so we better put it in our global list for that function. Come down to key up and make sure that key up mirrors the changes that we made in key down. So player triggers there. Can copy and paste this one. And we can change it to a false. No, that's actually funny. We don't want to let him, because if we tell it false, then as soon as he lets go, he can try to hit the trigger again. So we're going to do something else. We're not going to let the player off the hook that easily in this one. So you may think, we want this? Well, you know what? right now, I'm not sure what we want to do when the player takes their finger off the spacebar key, so we're going to pass and not worry about it. I think you'll see it takes care of itself, which is unusual. All right. Draw. Draw is a good place to actually try to draw the missile. So we draw our good guy, we draw our bad guy, we probably should draw our missile. The only thing that's different is we don't want to draw our missile unless we think that our missile is on the screen. If our missile is off the screen, we don't even bother drawing it, right? So if the missile is on, then we can canvas draw. Now here's where you have to make a decision. You can draw a line, you could draw a polygon like a square, you could draw a circle, you could draw an image. We're going to stick with a line because that's what Space Invaders looks like, so we're going to try that. Okay, where do we draw that line? Well, we're going to draw the line wherever it thinks the missile's location is. So we draw it at the missile location. Lines take two commands, the beginning of the line and the end of the line. So here's the beginning of the line, that one's easy. The end of the line is a little bit trickier because we need the X value for the missile. It's not going to, we want an up and down line, vertical line. And the X value therefore would not be changed. But the Y value, oops, I have to make sure I'm spelling this correctly throughout. The Y value, the value at position 1, we want that to go up the screen a little bit, maybe 25 big. So this is a bit confusing. Remember, it's just an X and a Y, but we have to take the missile's location and kind of split it up into two pieces. The X value, which is position 0, the Y value, which is position 1, subtracting a little bit so it draws up the screen. Next, we, I think, need a thickness. How thick do we want this line to be? We want it pretty thin. And finally, we need a color. Well, Space Invaders uses white. I guess it's good enough for them, and they made more money than me. That should be it. Now, we can't really test that because we only test it if the missile is on. So how does the missile get turned on? Well, the player presses the spacebar and the trigger's true. That's got to somehow turn the missile on so that it draws it on the screen. So down here, after we move the player, we are going to create a function, and that function is going to be called, I wanted to call it shoot player, but that sounds like we're trying to shoot somebody. We actually want player shoot. And then after the player shoots, while we're down here, we might as well add this. We're going to want the missile to move on the screen, so we can go ahead and add that function. So two functions we got to build, and then it should work. We're going to go up here to the helper functions. Here's the function to make something move. Guess what? To make the missile move, it's pretty much just as easy as that. So we'll do that one second, but it's going to be easy. First, the shooting. The shooting may be a little bit different. It's not hard, but it's something that we haven't done yet. What global variables might we change? Well, the missile, as we know, is currently not on, and we're going to want it to be on. Also, where does the missile first appear on the screen when we shoot it? The location's got to be set, right? We got to say, make it appear, make it spawn, if you will, in a particular place. Somebody check me and make sure I'm spelling missile correctly. Oh my goodness gracious. I thought I convinced myself to spell it correctly these days, but I have a real spelling disability when it comes to that word. So the missile's See, now I'm going to say it funny. Well, or correctly, I don't know. The missile's location is going to change. Is player trigger going to change when he shoots? No, not really. It's not gonna change. But the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna say, hey, if the player trigger is true, if he's pulled the trigger, if he's pressed the spacebar, then we're gonna do something. Well, there's two checks we have to do. If the player trigger is true and the missile on is false, how do we say that? We're going to say and not missile on. Because remember, those two things have to be true. He's got to hit the spacebar, but also the missile has got to be not currently on the screen. If those two things are true, then now we've raised the flag on missile on. Missile on is going to be true. And we need to set the missile's location. Goodness gracious. You were probably laughing at me already, weren't you? All right. The missile's location has two values in it. The first one is the X location. Where is this X location going to be? Well, it's going to be directly on the player, right? We want the missile to come right from the player. So it's going to equal the player's location. The missile's Y value, on the other hand, is going to equal the player's Y value, but if it's exactly the same, it's going to be directly on top of the player. We're going to want to subtract. Subtract how much? We're going to have to guess. Actually, we don't necessarily have to guess because we know that the good guy's height, no, it's not really that because it's that divided by some number. So for right now, we're just going to have to guess. Is that all we have to do if the player shoots? If the player shoots, create the missile. That's what we're saying. We should be able to test this, except we're going to get an error because move missile has not been defined. I'm probably going to get errors about spelling the thing wrong. So let's go ahead and move the missile because I said that's not really that hard. Look at me, I spelled it right the first time. Mom will be proud. Okay, what variables are going to change while the missile's moving? Well, the missile's location has got to change, right? I mean, that's only logical. How about if the missile is on or the player trigger? Do those need to change? Well, you know what? At some point, this missile is going to hit the top of the screen, and it's going to have to get turned off. And when that happens, we can release the player's trigger and let them fire again, so all those things are going to change. So the first part is easy. The missile's location of its Y value, only Y, because the other value is X is not going to change. It's going to go up the screen, so negative. And remember, we set this up at the very beginning. We said, hey, we have a missile speed. And I even spelled it right at the beginning. So it goes up, 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 up the screen. It gets to the top of the screen, something special's got to happen. So let's take a look at that. If the missile location of the Y value is less than or equal to 0, boom, we've hit the top. So what we do is we turn off the missile and we turn on, well, we release. The way to think about it is the player's trigger. Now, this is not going to work the first time. It can't be that easy, right? I'm going to take a quick look through and see if I see places that I've spelled the thing wrong. Right there. Yeah, could that be it? Maybe. Oh, Move over, press the spacebar. Pew, 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 pew. Try to bang on the spacebar while it's shooting. You'll see it's unresponsive. It only works once it actually hits the top. If you hold it down, it's not going to let it go. You've got to release it and try again. That's something we could do for the missile up, is we can somehow, or the spacebar up, the key up function. See if we can figure out a way to let you hold down and just rapid fire. Or you can make them actually bang it, because that's better play anyway. Alright, we've got a missile moving, and it's pretty fun to walk around there and shoot missiles, so enjoy.